by using that analogy of the eye of the tiger. You
Right,
know?
right.
Like those lyrics, it's the eye of the tiger, it's the thrill of the fight, rising up to the challenge of our rival.
Yeah.
Those lyrics just perfectly encapsulate what the law of relativity is all about.
It is about facing the challenge head on.
Exactly.
It's about acknowledging the fight.
Right.
And drawing inspiration from it, other people's battles.
Yeah.
Not necessarily comparing our struggles, but just recognizing that, everyone is facing something.
Yeah.
And we can find strength in that.
Exactly.
That shared human experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where I think, the ego comes back into play again too, because it's important to recognize when our ego is holding us back with that fear and self-doubt.
Yeah.
We need to really identify those thought monsters and choose to fight back with courage and belief in ourselves.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at a concept that I think is really fascinating, and that is the eighth universal law, relativity. And we're going to be looking at that through the lens of Violet Spring's book, Abundance, the Whole Truth.
Yeah.
Now, Violet Spring, for those who don't know, she's a holistic life coach, and she does a great job of breaking down this law and really kind of giving us some personal stories and some analogies to kind of wrap our heads around it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting the way that she connects this law or this principle to this bigger idea of abundance,
Right.
So just by understanding it, by understanding this idea of relativity, that then helps us kind of see more of the abundance that's already out there.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So what is this law of relativity?
Right.
How does she define it?
So essentially it's this reminder that, no matter what we're going through, there's always someone somewhere that's facing a tougher battle.
Right.
And it's not about minimizing our own struggles, but it's about just sort of getting this perspective.
Right.
And she uses this really great analogy throughout the chapter of the eye of the tiger.
Ooh, okay. I love that song.
And so she quotes the lyrics from Eye of the Tiger, rising up to the challenge of our rival, or facing the unknown.
Oh, yeah.
So it's about, just kind of like a fighter getting into the ring, finding that inner strength to just face whatever adversity comes our way.
So she's saying by kind of like acknowledging maybe other people's struggles, that can kind of help us tap into our own resilience.
Exactly.
To overcome our own obstacles.
Exactly. Yeah, she suggests that just making that shift in perspective can be so empowering.
Right.
Because it allows us to see our challenges not as these roadblocks, but as opportunities for growth.
Interesting. Now, she also talks about, I think, a lot of times when we're talking about this kind of stuff, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, positive thinking and everything is great. But she doesn't shy away from some of the things that can really hold us back.
Yeah.
From tapping into that inner tiger.
Yeah.
And she talks about these thought monsters, which I thought was so fascinating.
Yes.
So what are these exactly?
Well, just think about, those thought patterns that we have that are really fueled by fear, cynicism, or anger.
Right.
It's like they're always whispering these doubts in our ears, right?
Right.
They're magnifying our insecurities, keeping us stuck in this negativity. So, they might say things to us like, you're not good enough, or you'll never succeed, or even like, it's all pointless anyway.
So it's like our inner critic, but like on steroids almost.
Yes, absolutely. And they can be so debilitating if we allow them to sort of take control.
Right, because they can really spiral. Now, it makes me think about the ego's role in all this, too, because she talks about how our ego can be both our opponent and our ally in this.
Yeah.
So how does the ego fit into all of this?
That's a great point. And I think, the ego gets such a bad rap.
Yeah.
But in a way, it's trying to protect us.
Right.
It's just that, its methods sometimes backfire a little bit.
Right.
So it might make us, resist change or cling to these limiting beliefs, or even deny our true potential.
Oh,
just
wow.
because it's trying to keep us safe and comfortable.
So it's like, it's trying to protect us, but sometimes that protection can hold us back from really like stepping into our power.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's where I think her message about personal responsibility is so important. She even quotes Stan Lee, with great power comes great responsibility. So it's a good reminder that we do have this choice, right? We can let fear and negativity control us, or we can choose to embrace our personal power and rise above.
That's a really powerful message.
Yeah.
And she also talks about, hope alone isn't enough. We need action. So what does she kind of suggest we do with this newfound understanding?
Well, she argues that, realizing that others are facing these greater challenges, that shouldn't lead us to just complacency. It should actually inspire us to find our own eye of the tiger and tackle our own challenges with renewed vigor.
Okay.
So it's about acknowledging our feelings, but then making that conscious choice to shift our perspective.
Right.
And then that's where the real work begins.
That's interesting. This is already making me think about how I approach my challenges differently.
Yeah.
But it sounds like we have a lot more to unpack here.
We do. We haven't even really gotten into how she suggests we actually apply this law to find solutions and create positive change.
Oh, that's intriguing.
Yeah.
So we've only just scratched the surface.
Definitely.
Well, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about this idea of shifting our perspective and, seeing that others are going through things that maybe are even harder than what we're going through.
Yeah.
But how does that actually translate to abundance in our own lives?
Right. Well, it's interesting because Violet Spring, she connects it to gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
So, when we're so focused on what we think we lack, it's really easy to get caught in that scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
But when we step back and we realize that even when things are difficult, there's still always something to be grateful for, it really shifts our whole outlook.
So it's not about ignoring our problem.
No, not at all.
But it's just about finding, those little pieces of gratitude even when times are tough.
Exactly. Yeah. And that shift in focus can be really powerful because it allows us to tap into this sense of abundance, to realize that even if things are tough, we still have these resources. We have strengths, we have support systems that we can draw on.
Right. Now, I love how Violet Spring really uses stories throughout her book.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, does she have any specific examples in this chapter that really kind of illustrate the law of relativity in action?
Yeah, so in this chapter, she doesn't really dive into any specific stories, but she masterfully kind of drives her point home by using that analogy of the eye of the tiger.
Right.
Like those lyrics, it's the eye of the tiger, it's the thrill of the fight, rising up to the challenge of our rival.
Yeah.
Those lyrics just perfectly encapsulate what the law of relativity is all about.
It is about facing the challenge head on.
Exactly.
It's about acknowledging the fight.
Right.
And drawing inspiration from it. Other people's battles.
Yeah.
Not necessarily comparing our struggles, but just recognizing that, everyone is facing something.
Yeah.
And we can find strength in that.
Exactly.
That shared human experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where I think, the ego comes back into play again too, because it's important to recognize when our ego is holding us back with that fear and self-doubt.
Yeah.
We need to really identify those thought monsters and choose to fight back with courage and belief in ourselves.
Right. It's like this constant battle between our inner tiger and those thought monsters that are lurking in the shadows.
Yes.
So how do we practically, how do we manage those thought monsters? How do we cultivate that more resilient mindset?
Right. Well, that's where the action comes in, right? Violet Spring really emphasizes that it's not enough to just hope for things to change.
Right.
We have to actually do the work.
So wishing upon a star isn't going to do it.
Yeah, it's not quite enough.
Yeah. So what are some of those things that she suggests?
Right. So she really advocates for things like mindfulness, positive affirmations, surrounding yourself with supportive people.
Okay.
These are all tools that can really help us reframe those negative thoughts and shift our perspective and really tap into that inner strength and resilience.
I'm starting to see how it all really connects here. It's about recognizing that, challenges are going to come.
Yeah.
But we have a choice in how we respond to them. And it's about finding that balance between acknowledging our struggles, but then actively working towards a more abundant mindset.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not about denying that the difficulties are there, but it's about approaching them from this sense of empowerment.
Right.
And knowing that we have the tools to overcome them.
It's like we need to find our own Eye of the Tiger anthem to help us through those tough times.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, applying the law of relativity, you said earlier, it's more than just a feel-good concept. It's about actually creating some tangible results in our lives.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. And in this last section of our deep dive, we're going to explore some concrete ways that you can utilize this law to actually uncover solutions and unlock new possibilities in your own life. So stay tuned.
So we've talked about, shifting our perspective, finding gratitude, but I'm really curious about getting into the practicality of applying this law of relativity.
Yeah.
How do we actually use it to create positive change?
Right. Yeah. And this is where I think Violet Spring really shines, because she provides this roadmap for how to actually apply it, not just to make ourselves feel better, but to actually uncover solutions and create some tangible results.
So it's going beyond just the inspirational part of it and really getting into the action.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how do we do that?
Well, you know how we were talking about how hope is not a strategy?
Right.
So applying the law of relativity can actually be part of that strategy. So instead of feeling overwhelmed by a challenge, we can use this principle to actually kind of reframe our thinking and find new pathways forward.
Okay, so can you give me like an example? Like how might someone use this to approach a problem differently?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say, for example, you're facing some sort of career setback. You're feeling stuck, you're discouraged, maybe you're even questioning your abilities. So applying the law of relativity doesn't mean that we just dismiss those feelings. You know, we acknowledge those feelings, but then we consciously choose to shift our perspective.
So instead of just spiraling into all the negativity, we might ask ourselves, well, has someone else faced a similar challenge and come out stronger on the other side?
Exactly. Yeah. So you might seek out stories of resilience and draw inspiration from other people who have kind of navigated similar obstacles. Or you might ask yourself, what's one small step that I can take today to move forward, even if it's just updating your resume or reaching out to a mentor?
Right. So it's acknowledging that, progress isn't always a straight line.
I guess
It's about those little steps that we take that build upon each other.
Right. And I think that's also where, the power of perspective comes in again.
Right.
Because instead of comparing our behind the scenes to somebody else's highlight reel, we remember that everyone is facing challenges, even the people who seem like they have it all figured out.
Yeah, it's like that reminder to be kind to ourselves and to just recognize that setbacks are a natural part of the journey.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the law of relativity can be so transformative. It helps us to kind of step outside of our own little bubble and tap into this wellspring of compassion, not just for ourselves, but for other people who are navigating their own challenges as well.
I really love this whole concept, this whole idea that, it's almost like she's giving us this mental tool that we can use to really kind of reframe any situation, and find a more empowered perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. It's that reminder that we always have a choice in how we respond to these challenges, right?
Right.
We can let the fear and the negativity dictate our actions, or we can choose to tap into that inner strength and really create a more fulfilling reality.
Well, this has been such a great deep dive into Violet Spring's work.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up here, what is like that one key takeaway that you really hope people listening will walk away with?
I would say just remember the next time you're feeling overwhelmed by a challenge, remember the law of relativity. Shift your perspective. Seek inspiration from other people's resilience and take action, even if it's just one small step. Because you have more power than you realize.
And you never know. Maybe by sharing your story of how you overcame, you might inspire somebody else to find their eye of the tiger.
Yeah.
And just create this ripple effect of positivity and abundance. That's all for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
Thanks so much for watching. I'm truly grateful for the support you show Metaphysical Manor and my content when you like, comment, share, and subscribe, as all of those things keep me motivated to keep making content and helps grow our amazing Soul Star community.